Hello, friends, and happy Wednesday, and welcome into Talking Trees Live. I am your host, Katie Dubow, and I am so excited to be joined today by our guest, Dana Karcher. Let me bring her in. Hey, Dana.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a fun topic because Dana and I were just chatting before we went live, and I feel like we could talk for hours just about anything, but we're here to talk about trees and the benefits of street trees. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. We already have some people tuning in. Hey, Kevin, a regular. We're so excited to see you. Let us know where you guys are tuning in from. That's one of the things that we love about this conversation and this Facebook Live is that we get to talk to people from all over, Dana, all over the country, but sometimes all over the world. So let us know where you hug trees. And another thing we like to do is ask people what their weather's like where they are. So putting a little emoji in the comments. I would say I'm a little overcast today. I would use the sun behind the clouds emoji. What about you?
We've got some big white fluffy clouds outside, but it's nice because we have had so much rain for Texas. So much rain for Texas. So it's good. Yeah, it's been great though.
Now, what part of Texas are you in?
I'm in Central Texas, just north of Austin and south of Waco, right in the middle.
I actually just listened to a podcast with, I'm not going to take this to Matthew McConaughey, but, and he was talking about Austin and I thought, wow, he really lives in Austin. I need to make a trip down there. So I'll visit you and
okay.
We can swing by and see Matthew.
Right. We can. We'll find him.
Yes.
And he likes trees, by the way.
Tree care work. I'm sure he does because he is all about being one with, tuning into your feelings, and he has a new book out and really being one with nature. And, whether you live in a city, let's transition this, whether you live in a city or you live out in the forest, you need access to nature. You need access to trees. We talked to your colleague, Chrissy Bach, last week, all about the benefits of trees, all about that. And so we really dove into, I never get that one right. Yeah, into those benefits, and there are enormous benefits of urban trees and urban environments too. So we're gonna really dive into that in a little bit. But let's see what people are saying. So we've got Doreen saying sunshine and blue skies. Megan, it's from Round Rock, Texas. Is that near you?
Yep, not far.
Cool. Oh, more people from Austin. Your peeps must be on. Paul. Hey, Jill from Ohio. She's got some clouds. And Kathy from Southwest Florida. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see you. We've got people all over the country today, so that's so exciting. So we said that we're going to talk about city trees, about how trees make your neighborhood brighter and better. And if you want to do that, Dana has some tips on how to make your own neighborhood, make your own street, make your just little, however big that plot that you have out front of your condo, your apartment, you can change that, which might even just change the way you feel, might change your entire neighborhood. But first, let's meet Dana. So you're a project developer at the Davey Resource Group, and you're an area manager for the Texas region. So I know that you and I were chatting that you moved to Texas. How long have you lived in Texas now?
Going on my third year.
Okay.
Going on my third year. So we've been here almost 3 years.
Wonderful. And I love looking at people's LinkedIn profiles. So your bio says that you're a connector of those that believe trees and the benefits that they provide make stronger and better communities. So you are the perfect lady for our chat today. So let's connect these people with some knowledge.
Okay.
Sandy, our mutual friend, Sandra Reed, posted something today that was so perfect for this chat. She said that street trees or urban trees are the lungs of a city. And that visual it's so stuck with me and really made an impact on me. And we did talk at length about the benefits of trees, but talk to us a little bit about what that means. Why are our street trees the lungs of the city?
Well, that is so great that Sandy put that, because early on in my career, I worked with a gentleman out of Los Angeles named George Gonzalez, and he was the chief forester for the city of Los Angeles. And that was his signature on his emails as well.
Wow.
And trees are the lungs of the city. And when you live in an area that has really poor air quality, such as Los Angeles or where I lived in Bakersfield, you think about how much they take up that really bad stuff because they're cleaning PM10, they're cleaning out that PM10, PM2.5, that particulate matter, and they're cleaning the air for us, and they're helping us breathe. So that's kind of my vision for trees are the lungs of the city. And I think that's what, Sandy means by that they help us breathe better too, and provide us with that oxygen that we need to have those deep breaths that are so important.
I love that. That's true. And I can visualize the trees just absorbing that pollution. And you're right. In any areas, you're going to have pollution that you have lots of cars, lots of people.
Right. And it doesn't matter if you live in Los Angeles, which has really, it has interesting air quality, I should say, or where I lived in the California Central Valley, or here in Central Texas, where it's really blue right now and the sky is beautiful. You're right. Cars and, other equipment that we use, create that air pollution, and trees really help absorb some of that, the dust and the dirt, and they filter things for us. My friend Paul is on this, and if I didn't talk about how trees provide make our lives healthier, that's another way too. So healthy trees, healthy lives is something that is really important, and that's some of the benefits they provide.
I love that. What are some of the other ones? Because I know cities are often referred to as heat islands.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that trees can help combat that. What are some of the things they do in cities to help combat that?
Well, they provide the shade, which really does cool things down. I used to plant trees with school children. I used to take 2 giant thermometers. We'd put one under the tree when we started planting and put one out in the sun. And that 10 to 12 degree, change was always there to show them how important trees were. So shade is the very first thing. So building that canopy so that you can, cover those heat islands where that impervious surface really reflects and causes particulate matters and other forms of air pollution to really grow. So that's one thing. But they also can shade our air conditioners and can shade our windows and the places where we want to make sure that we're saving energy. So that's important as well. So they help lower ambient temperatures that way. And, there's other things too. I mean, we talked about how much rain has been in Texas, right? And they really do slow that runoff. And I see that on my morning walks. I live in kind of a very wooded environment, lots of big oak trees, and I see that. Yeah, it's nice. I'm lucky, I gotta say. So they really do slow that storm water down, help save that topsoil, and that's really important as well.
Yay, trees. Paul is listening and tuning in. That's a lot of hashtags, Paul. Healthy trees, healthy lives, because trees are key. Love it. But we give those street trees a run for their money, don't we? They have a tough life. I mean, they're baking in that heat off of the street. We don't often treat them the best. So why do you think that street trees are kind of, why don't they, I think they're, maybe I don't have the research right, but do they have a shorter lifespan than a forest tree?
They do. And you're right. We have the tendency to abuse them a little bit. A college town is always the perfect example when you see the bicycles locked up to the trees, and you just kind of cringe as an arborist and say, oh, that baby bark is so tender. And that's part of it. I mean, we put them in very young, right? Mm-hmm. And then we expect them to just be able to handle everything we throw at them, from bicycles to planting in the area around the tree to just, really not treating them very well. Mm-hmm. And so, they do have a shorter lifespan. But I think the good news is that we know that now. Research shows that. There's been some great research on that. And there are ways to make them, live longer. And one of them is to treat them correctly. So you want to mulch that area and think twice about planting in there, in that, that pit or whatever it's called in your area where you live. Tree pit, tree well, tree lawn strip, hell strip. I mean, there's all kinds of names for it. Right? Yeah.
Pop and soda.
Yeah.
Which one are you?
I never was pop. I was a Coke girl. Just because my mother would never let us have it. Can't we have a Coke?
Well, that's a fun little poll. I know we're talking about trees, but let us know if you're pop, soda, Coke, what you say in the comments, please. So in my area, I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and this is how somebody pruned a tree. And this went out on our community Facebook page. And it said, please do not prune the street trees yourself. We have professionals for that. And so I think like people, maybe they think they're doing the right thing. I'm not sure, they have, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they have the tree's best interest at heart, but then they just chop the tree and look at all the other trees have grown back, and that tree, I don't know what's going to happen to it.
It's a sad state of affairs when we top trees like that. And people do many times think they're doing the right thing, but as you know, I'm a huge advocate for certification and for certified arborists. And so you want to make sure you're hiring the right people to do the tree care. And cities do hire the right people to do tree care. They put that in their codes, and they make sure that certification is part of who is taking care of their trees. So we do have the tendency to do that sometimes, even when the trees are young. We prune them way back. We need to give them that opportunity to grow some girth, to move in the wind so that they can actually stand longer and taller.
Well, that actually leads me to my next question. When you talked about cities taking care of them, who is responsible for the care of our street trees?
Well, that's interesting. So, at Davey Resource Group, we do a lot of work that has to do with consulting with cities. So we do inventories, we do urban forest master plans and things like that. And many times we'll be working in one city where they're fully responsible for the street tree care, and other times it's on the property owner. So it really changes community by community. So I lived in a community once where the city was fully responsible. It was in the ordinance, yet you had to have a permit to prune the tree. And that's becoming more and more common. So there's some, you need to find out. You can call your Recreation and Parks Department or your Public Works Department, wherever your urban forester may be, and you can get that information. But in any case, you should leave it to the professionals to take care of the trees.
Yeah. So, if you do have a street tree and you find out that you're responsible for caring for it, you call Davey. We'll post the link of, where you can find your local office, and they can do the care for you. So you don't need to worry about it. And then that tree can grow big and change your air conditioner and get the health benefits that we talked about, but there's economic benefits too. There's environmental. I mean, we could, we did a whole chat about that. So
we could go on though.
we could go on. So, all right, well, let's then jump into, we talked about how great they are, and let's jump into, let's say it is our responsibility, a little bit about what street trees need that might be different or the same from our more suburban landscape trees.
Well, when we plant them in that small space that we give them, which is not necessarily the homeowner's discretion about how big that space is. Sometimes it's a 4x4. Sadly, sometimes it's a 3x3. Hopefully it's a little bit more. You want to make sure that you plant it correctly. That's the first thing. If you don't plant the tree correctly to begin with, it's going to have a hard time living. So you want to make sure it's a little bit above grade, spread out those roots. Look, those are great plantings. Put some stakes so that they have, that opportunity to stand up straight for a little while before you remove those stakes. And you can see on the bottom of that picture at the very bottom of the trunk, there's definitely some mulch probably there. And I think that that's really, really important. Doreen put in there, no volcano mulch in Illinois. Actually, Doreen, no volcano mulch anywhere. Okay, I see it no matter where I go. But definitely you want to mulch there around the area and make sure that helps keep the weeds down, which compete for the nutrients in the soil and compete for water. So you keep the weeds down and make that area really nice.
I love that. So that picture we showed was of newly planted trees. I also like how they're spaced apart. What about watering? Should we be, even if we're not responsible for these trees, should we be watering them? Because I know that's a big myth. People don't think the trees need to be watered. They think, they'll take care of themselves.
Well, it kind of goes back to that question, who's managing the trees for the city. So you want to make sure that if they're not watering, that you're watering. So a simple phone call should do it, or an email to somebody. And if not, then you should be watering. And depending on how much rain you get, you should dig down, touch the soil. I am not a person who wears gloves when I plant trees. I love the feel of soil underneath my fingernails. I know it's weird, but anyway, I love digging down, seeing and, probing down there to see how that is, especially when the tree is young, to check for that moisture and see. If you want to go technical, you can get a moisture meter or something like that, but definitely you need to water when there's no rain, and you need to water when there's no irrigation either. So, many times and in many places we plant trees without irrigation because irrigation is the most expensive part of planting a tree sometimes. So you want to make sure that that is taken care of. You're right. Make sure you do give it some water. That's pretty basic.
Well, I feel like a lot of times in cities I'll see those bags around the trees. There's a brand name for them, but is that something that is beneficial? Or I've heard kind of conflicting evidence on those bags.
I've heard conflicting evidence too. The most important thing is that you can't just put them on there and walk away. Maybe you can put them on there and go on vacation, but you better come back and check it when you get home. So they help if you are looking at them all the time. I kind of think about it that like when you put that tomato cage on your tomatoes, right? You don't walk away and wait till they, get your first tomatoes. You actually go back and you check it occasionally to make sure that everything is good. And that's kind of the same thing. You want to make sure that bag is working for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it could grow. I have a picture of something that we have some do's and don'ts, certainly, that we will share, because the do's are nice, but really the don'ts are better, right? Like a bag could be tied too tightly around the tree. But this is also, you talked about bicycles. This is something that happens to our street trees, I think, more often than not.
Right. So we put them in the ground and then we walk away and expect them to do everything for us. We need to guide them. I always talk about when you plant a tree and you do the hole correctly, that you make sure that the roots are spread out, and that you make sure that hole is not too nice, because roots are like teenagers. If you make their home too nice, they'll never leave, right? But you also have to guide them. So you better take off those ties or whatever that might be. It looks like it was a tie, because that tree is absolutely at its weakest point. And if that tree was in my yard, I'd probably have Davey come take it out.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about stakes a little bit. So when we saw these beautiful trees were nice and staked, and then you gave this great, before we started chatting, about staking trees. So how do we know when to take the stake off? Let's say, again, that we are under the care, it's our responsibility.
Okay.
Doing these things if the city is, or someone like Davey is caring for them. But let's say it's our responsibility. Or if you're a homeowner and you have a tree in your backyard, how do you know when to take a stake off?
Well, usually what I do is I go up and I move that tree back and forth. I push it back and forth so that I can see if the root ball is moving. And if the root ball is not moving, then I take out those stakes. Some people say, oh, the tree should be the same size as the stake. Well, that's kind of a fallacy, because sometimes we plant trees that are the same size as the stake. So that may not work. And we're all not using the 3-inch, we're all not using the 3-inch wooden stakes. So really it's about making sure that trunk is really rigid. And so that it's not, doing this in the wind. I'm sorry, my hand there, doing this in the wind. There we go. And so you just want to make sure that it has some movement, like the ability to move, because that's how it grows stronger. But you want to make sure that they're not too tight. And sometimes you have to go back and loosen them as well. They might have to be in for another year. Definitely when you go to look at them for maybe spring pruning update or something like that, that's when you want to look at those.
Mm-hmm. And you said it's because you want the tree to be able to blow in the wind, right? Because that will create stronger roots.
And it helps with both the roots and with the wood, because it helps make those cells grow stronger, stronger walls, put all those cells together, makes the wood. Yep. That's how it all happens.
Paul is chiming in saying no more than one growing season. Now, staked. Now, is a growing season a full year? What does that mean, a growing season?
Well, it depends on the size of the tree you put in the ground. So, Paul actually comes from the state forestry background, state urban forestry background. So he may be, thinking about the trees that people put in the communities in which we live, right? But if a homeowner is putting in a tree and they buy a number 5, which is a tinier tree, right? Mm-hmm. Then that stakes may have to be in there longer. So I really, I agree with him on that, but it depends also on the size of the trees.
Gotcha. And I don't know what that hashtag is there that he said, but
Figmatropism.
Mm-hmm, that.
Yeah, that.
Well, let's talk about some of the other things we can do that people often do. So you talked about this space that people get this often. This is a city, you get this 3x3, 4x4 plot. And sometimes you want to dress it up. Sometimes you feel the urge to plant in it. And there are some good do's and don'ts. This is a do. Now tell me what are some of the things you like about this?
What I love about this is it gives room for, the tree. It gives room for that soil, all that soil. You can put mulch in there. And sadly, when the tree, life's, is done, sadly, you can actually move those boards and actually get that tree trunk out of there so that you can, that stump out with a stump grinder so you can plant again. That's the first thing. The second thing is it gives room for the urban forester to actually maneuver around that tree. And then nobody's, they may lock a bike to the wood, but they're not going to lock a bike to that tree. And it just gives a lot of good access for sure.
Good access to the forester, but then also a good barrier so that someone's not, like you said, either locking their tree or leaning up against it when it's too little or doing any number of things. Maybe that might even prevent someone from, putting, I lost my cat flyers on that tree or something.
Right. Please no flyers on trees.
Yeah. And another thing about water that this does is it allows the water to run from the sidewalk right into the tree, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, it's just minimalist. That's kind of, I think, the best way to look at this. And in an urban area like this, that's really what you want.
Yes.
Really what you want.
Well, shall we look at some maximalists then? Not this one.
That one.
Beautiful tree.
That's so pretty.
Okay, it's a different group of pictures over here. Okay, so, well, this is not maximalist, but if that's even a word, this is not perfect. So tell me why this might not be perfect.
I'm not quite sure what that rubber ring is around the tree. So you've got stakes and they may or may not need to come out, but that rubber ring thing, which may be, not sure why it's there. I guess, somebody thought it looked pretty. Yeah. So all you have to do is take that out and you're fine. And I think that looks like mulch there. So that's nice.
That looks like mulch.
And you want to keep the mulch away from the trunk, which you've probably had that conversation because I read on here about something about a Katie mulch, volcano mulch rant.
Wait,
so,
but you can't stop there. Let's rant again because there might be new people on here and, volcano mulching. Doreen was saying she never saw the volcano mulching in Arizona. So maybe I need to move to Arizona because it drives me crazy. I want to get out of my car and go tell the landscapers, what are you doing? You guys, this is your job because it's piled up against the tree. So yes, like Dana said, just pull it gently back from the tree. I'm so obsessed with it that my Davey arborist came out to my house and said, you could have a little more mulch around the tree. And he kind of shook the trunk like you were saying. And he said, do you see how it's probably been planted 3 years. It's like, you could have a little more mulch. Don't be so obsessed with volcano mulching.
Well, Katie, you sound like me because sometimes when I go to the shopping centers, I happen to have a tool in the car and I might release a tree from the stakes sometimes. But yeah.
Guerrilla stake cutting.
A little guerrilla stake cutting, yeah. And
Paul is saying probably used to water. So
yeah, it might be one of those. Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
One of the other criticisms of this was that even though that border is very nice, it's slightly above the sidewalk, and so you're not getting that runoff from the sidewalk.
And you might be causing a trip hazard as well.
Yeah, so. I broke my thumb by tripping over a beautiful wrought iron, one around. I mean, I guess I'm clumsy, really, but
No, that's okay.
Street tree. All right.
Yeah, you're right.
Here.
Well, this is just sad all the way around because first off, it's all the way around. That's the beginning part of that. Also, I don't know if that's a planter or not. It's hard to tell with the root flare. If that's a planter, it could be done differently than this. Definitely, it's going to have to be watered all the time from the top. There's no runoff getting into that tree other than from down. Yeah, I can't see any mulch. I actually see plantings in there. And it's just, if this was my city, I might call the city and say, that's kind of unsightly as well, because it's really ugly.
My guess is the city didn't do this and someone might have piled up dirt inside that box.
Yes.
And as we just talked about with volcano mulching, actually, for those who might not know, why is volcano mulching bad?
Well, it kind of just really buries that root flare, and then that's really, really neat to be able to give that tree some oxygen and some room to grow and some room to breathe. Because when we volcano mulch, we're never looking again at the root flare. And it's like, it's almost like you need to put a 6-month checkup on your calendar for your big trees, and a bi-weekly checkup for your baby trees, and go out and look at them and make sure they're okay. But yeah, there's that. And I've seen planters on streets. In fact, I've worked with planters on streets. And once again, once that tree goes, how do you get that out of there to make that a viable space for a new tree?
Right.
And we have to keep doing that. Oh, this one is so
creative.
It's creative because there's additional space for planting in the bricks if you want that. Yeah. So, and you might be able to get a little more water in there somehow. And they did leave it open to the street. But as you can see, when you look closely at that tree, it's certainly not very healthy. And there's definitely some sort of mulch in there. It looks almost like pine mulch or something. But there's all kinds of things competing with that tree. And again, it's, you can actually remove that when you want to take out that tree, but there's just too much competing, and it's not healthy for the tree at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think the competition is the number one thing. We talked at the beginning how trees are stressed. Street trees are already stressed. So let's not add any competing things like not having them be able to get water, putting plants that might not be the best in there, not mulching them. Here's one more just for fun. So tell us about this one.
Well, clearly someone is trying to make this look really pretty with their house. And so there's way too much soil up against that poor tree with those bulbs that are in there, which I'm thinking those are bulbs. Yeah. If they're watering it, I'm seeing that the water might just come right back out through the lattice. And then it has those, those beams around the bottom too, which are painted to match. There's a whole bunch of things about this one. So assuming that they've added soil, they really are killing those roots on that tree. And although, they think that the majority of them are probably underneath them, it's just causing all kinds of girdling problems. And again, has to be taken down in order for it to be, become healthy again. So I think that root flare is underneath there somewhere.
And more like a mature tree. So unfortunately, trees don't show signs of stress right away, like maybe a perennial or something that we would bury. And so this person might have this for a year or 2 or 3 and not realize the damage that they're doing to the tree, right?
Right. Well, and I've consulted on a number of trees, and specifically a beautiful walnut in my life that they built an incredibly nice planter around it and buried the whole root flare. And it took about 5 years for it to really begin to decline. And, when the bees came and built their home in there and people were gathering underneath it, it just became completely unsafe. And it was very sad, very sad. So you're right. It takes a while, especially on a mature tree. On a young tree, you'll see it right away.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about underplanting and what kinds of things you should in a city, or maybe just you should avoid it. Can you underplant under a tree in this space, or should be avoided altogether?
Well, so both of my children are probably listening to this, and they're going to say, I wonder if my mother's going to lie. So I used to have 2 big, beautiful Chinese elms out in front of my house that went all the way to the center of the street. And in between them, not around them, but in between them, I had 100 daffodil bulbs. I think it was okay. Everything was mulched, that was okay. But there was nothing else there, right? It was just very much a little bit of color and then it was gone. But I think you have to be very, very careful. You don't want to put shrubs. You certainly, annuals maybe, but really it depends on how much space there is. This was a 4 by whatever. It was huge, so I had room to do that. But not everybody has that luxury. And I think that when many cities have ordinances against planting in those tree wells, and so you want to make sure that you're following what the city says. And of course, it's difficult to maintain a watering schedule if you have two different things going on. So the tree may not need as much water as your annuals or your perennials need, so you have to be careful with that as well. So a lot of people do it. You'll see decline in your tree. That vine is the tree in this case. Yeah. So that's a really good example of what not to do.
And you let it, either that's something that, you know, is a weed that grew up or someone planted, who knows, but no one's taking care of it. And look, that stake is still there, supporting the vine.
Right.
There's another one of, you know, either no mulch, just no care, right? There's just no care paid attention to these trees. And that tree doesn't look so great to me either. Still staked. That can use your gorilla, I think, staking right there.
Well, we could take off those stakes. If this was in front of my house, which if I lived in an apartment, that would be kind of weird. It's been a long time since I've lived in an apartment. But if that was my house, I would take out those stakes. I would clean out those weeds. I would lay down some mulch. And I bet you that tree would really, really love that. It would be thankful for the care.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've covered all of the don'ts that I have. I'm sure there are many more out there, but because we want to show everybody the do's again. You want to provide some type of barrier so people don't hit your tree. As you said, access from the street. Water should be allowed to run into it, and just have a minimalist view about it. You can be maximalist in your home or with containers. What about putting a few containers on the, still no, it would block it?
It depends. I mean, it really kind of depends on the species of tree and what you're putting in your container. I love the minimalist. Yes, the minimalist in me says, yeah, don't do that. But you're right. Containers are great for adding color and accent. And you can actually probably get away with putting them next to the tree on the sidewalk, maybe even, depending on where you live, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we've given you guys, everyone is really on the no volcano mulching, and I'm thrilled about that. If we have a little bit of time, I think it'd be fun to dive into some of the things that, as you mentioned, Davey does a lot of consulting for cities, some of the things that Davey uses, because it's not just about walking around, although I'm sure some of the consulting arborists do that, you walk around, but what are some of the other tools and tricks that Davey uses to be able to assess what the tree canopy looks like in a city?
Well, we're so lucky. We've been around for such a long time, and we've been doing it for so long that we're kind of the leader in this. And so we do tree inventories. Some people call them tree census, but tree inventory is really what they are. And we send out brilliant people, way younger than me usually, who go out with their computer tablets, and they actually log, things about each tree, from its size, its species, the health of the tree, maybe the care needs. They look at the risk the tree may have, and they categorize all of this into a database. We have a database called Tree Keeper that we utilize. They put that into Tree Keeper, and then they give it to the city arborist, the urban forester, the parks department, who's ever managing their trees, and say, here you go. And my favorite comparison is this, is I used to work with the public works department in the city I lived in quite a bit, and they knew exactly how many miles of roads they had, how many miles of sidewalks they were managing. Wow. And here we are with cities that don't know how many trees they're managing. And this is really great because you can budget and you can determine what, you can put it through iTree. And I know that you know about iTree, but you can put that through iTree and you can find out, what the value of the trees is to the community, which I love, which is so fun. But also you can determine which trees are the most beneficial or which trees are not doing well. So if you're planting, in Texas, we have a ton of oaks. And of the inventory work we've done here, we see that, many of the inventories are really heavy into oaks. So how do you diversify? Because you need to diversify your canopy as well. And then speaking of canopy, that's the other thing that I love that we do, is we actually do studies about communities' canopy and where they can, where they have trees, where they can plant trees, where they shouldn't plant trees. And it just is so exciting. And canopy is an indicator of community health in so many ways. And then when you pair that with different things like things that come out of the census, like like poverty or school scores or where people live and where people play and where people work. You just can get all this really exciting data. And I'm getting really excited about it because I haven't shut up about it. But it's so fun. It's so fun to me. So
well, it's so important.
It is. It's really important. It's really important. So we use a lot of different ways. There's different ways to go about doing that. And I'm excited about some of the work we've done across the country on that. So we have a huge crew out in Los Angeles right now doing inventory in Los Angeles, which is really fun. I know, right?
Imagine. But then when you look at it, it's so valuable. It's important because it's valuable to the community, as you said. That's the reason. Well, I guess the environment too. It's invaluable to the environment, number one. But the people who live in that community will benefit so greatly from knowing where there's the deficits, so you can improve it. And I applaud LA for taking that initiative. And
me too. Yeah, me too. And Katie, the other thing I would think about all the data that, Davey Resource Group is all about gathering data and helping communities make the best decisions about their trees. But the other part that I think is really important is that we help our clients tell their story about their trees. So we can do that through inventory. We can do that through hyperspectral imagery. They can do it with their software themselves. They can go up in front of their city council and say, this year I pruned, 500 trees and I was able to plant 500 more trees and I had to remove 2 trees. They can tell that story so that the city council can go, oh, and how valuable was that? Go back to iTree tools and see what that does. So, and iTree is actually embedded in TreeKeeper, which is really cool too. But that's
tell us a little bit. We haven't talked much about iTree on here, and likely a lot of you tuning in know what it is. But give us the quick elevator pitch about what iTree is.
iTree determines, thanks. This is really my favorite, one of my other favorite topics. It's the structure, function, and value of trees. That's really what it helps to determine. And they're tools that are available to the public. So you can actually use iTree to go onto the tree benefits calculator and actually put your tree size in there and everything else. You don't have to use diameter at breast height like we do. You can use like regular stuff and just put that in there. Say it's a big oak tree and it'll pop out with the benefits. And so it is so cool because it goes back to that thing I said before. It's about being able to tell a story about your tree. And that's what I love. So iTree, it's down to the one tree, the many trees, the lots of trees, and we get to tell all those kind of stories with iTree. So it's great.
It's a great tool. I've used it. You get kind of down the rabbit hole where you just, I wonder what this tree. Oh, I wonder what this tree. And if you're looking at a new home, I know a lot of people are doing new homes. You can assess all of the benefits of the trees on your new property, or even think about telling the story about your current property. If you have a number of trees, even street trees around, I love that every tree tells a story, I think someone once said.
Right.
But Logan, we'll get to your question in a minute. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. But one more thing kind of related to iTree, are there any other apps that you like? I know that you're in the tree world, because I have one if you don't have any that you love. But I think that it's important for people to erase tree blindness. And so as we're walking around cities, what is that tree, or, using iTree or something that you like to help people observe?
I used to have 2 apps on my phone, and for the life of me, I can't think of the name of them right now. I had to clear them off so I could put other things on my phone. Because, and I probably should put one back, because one's a tree ID app and I can't remember what it is. But anyway, so I like those plant ID apps.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I use one called Leaf Snap.
I had that on there for a while. Yeah,
the one that you use, because there are not a ton of them. That are accurate, I think is one of the keys. So, but I think it's important for people to know what trees you have, know what street trees you have, and use something to identify them.
And there's resources for you to learn more. Besides your local Davey office, of course, you can always call, our local friends, but you can also call your city arborist and your master gardeners and those kind of people to help you with that. And I think that those are really important to keep in your back pocket too. So so that because if you love trees like we do, and if you care for them, they'll give you a long life. Even those urban trees, if we love them and care for them, they will. So
I liked your point earlier that the more research now that's coming out about the lifespan of street trees is helping us understand, wait, we need to do some more than just plant them and water them.
Right. And a few years ago, when I was first in the urban forestry business, I remember hearing a speaker say that the street tree average lifespan was 7 years. And I was like, really? That's terrible, right? But I think we've come a long way since then. And, research has really helped us understand, you're right. And so,
good.
Yeah, it's great.
All
Yeah.
right. So earlier we were talking about water needs and what to plant and how to prune. I guess we missed talking about fertilizer. So Logan made a great point. Thank you, Logan, about fertilizers in a city. I would imagine the soil there is not rich with micronutrients or worms, so they might need a little extra help in that department.
They probably do. And my suggestion is that first off, if it's your street tree and you have to take care of it, then you should call a professional or go to a professional for that. Number one, because your soil needs to be tested to determine what it is. Because many times when they're building your house, especially in a new neighborhood, guess what gets thrown into the tree pit? Or, right. I wasn't going to say that. Anything. You could be digging and you'll find the cement from something, a guy's lunch. There's all kinds of things that you could find in there. So you want to make sure that you test the soil. That's the first thing. And when you test the soil or have the soil tested, then you can go to your professional and say, I need you to apply fertilizer. So yes, but if it's not your street tree to take care of, if the city does indeed take care of that for you, then you want to make sure that you communicate that, a failing tree to somebody. There was a great letter to the editor in the Austin American Statesman this past week. And I have a lot of friends who work for the city of Austin. And somebody complimented that somebody was driving by a dead tree and it drove by it for 3 days in a row. And they said it was probably dead from the freeze. And that we had here, when Texas went crazy, was probably dead from the freeze. And they drove by that tree 3 times and they realized they probably should call somebody from the city. And the guy said he called the city, they came, they took that tree down, and he said, so they are responsive. So you want to give your city a chance to be responsive to the trees that they manage. Don't manage for them. Let the professionals manage trees. I mean, that's across the board. Let the professionals manage trees, but definitely if it's not your city.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. Let the professionals do their job. So I have a 4-year-old who wants to jump in. So we're talking about how much we love trees, and Paul loves soil tests. So lots of love happening here. Any other questions before we wrap up? This has been a great conversation about all the benefits of urban trees, how to care for them, the do's, the don'ts, and some of the great resources that your local arborist can provide if you are responsible for caring for your street tree. And if not, let your city, let them do it. But, they may listen, there's probably a lot of trees that they need to manage. So give them a call. Don't be afraid to know your city arborist, but be kind. Let's all be nice.
Right.
Yes. So it sounds like there's no more questions. So thank you so much, Dana. This has been lovely.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Katie. I really had a good time talking to you.
Me too. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to show this beautiful picture of what a well-managed street looks like with beautiful trees in the fall, because who doesn't love the fall? That was great. We learned so much from Dana, and thank you guys for your engagement. You were hot today, so we really appreciate all of your questions for Dana. She knows so much. We're done for today, but we'll be back June 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll have Travis McDonald. He's from the Minneapolis region, and he's going to talk about newly planted trees. So today we talked a lot about the difference between young trees or maybe established trees. So if you've recently planted a tree last fall, last spring even, or this spring, Travis is going to walk us through how you care for that. But if you need more information between now and then, Davey's got a great podcast called Talking Trees. You can find it on your podcast apps. And you obviously can follow Davey on Facebook, Instagram. And always, please contact your local arborist if you need anything. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Wednesday.